Hey guys, welcome to the post-game reaction to the Marlins home opener win versus the Philadelphia Phillies. Marlins won 4-3 today. I'm joined with my guy Eric Wiedeke. Eric, what's your initial reaction right after the game?
My initial reaction after the game is the Marlins continue to own the Phillies.
Yeah, it's crazy that this just that weird. It doesn't mean anything, but it's just that weird thing where
Right.
one team just like constantly owns the other one, and it really does not mean anything. But hey, another Marlins win versus the Phillies.
Yeah, no, it's always nice to get it was good to see the crowd out there. I think they announced like over 31,000 at the game. So it was good to see the Marlins get off to a good start, especially in front of a bigger crowd than they've had in the last few years.
Yeah, and and it seems like the game where the offense finally came alive a little bit, especially in that
Yep.
especially in that fourth inning. 6 hits for the Marlins, 11 hits for the Phillies, but 4 runs. We got a Cooper home run. We got a nice, exciting Jesus Sanchez triple. So we started to find a little bit of spark from this Marlins offense that we thought was potentially could happen, and we got our first taste
hmm
of it.
Yeah, and I think as important as anything, it was good to see guys like Jesus Aguilar and Abasil Garcia. I know it's not going to show up as anything really major in this box score, but just those guys getting on the board, getting on base, couple of hits, those are the kind of things that get guys out of slumps incrementally. So that's going to be something to look for. Still want to see a little bit more production at the top of the order with Jorge Soler, but when the rest of the guys are producing, you don't really notice that quite as much.
Yeah, and that's something that we're seeing with fans starting to become impatient about, with Soler going 0 for 4 again tonight with 2 strikeouts, striking out a ton, and Jazz Chisholm Hall at the bottom of the lineup. I know we're going to focus on the positives here tonight because, second win of the season. It was a fun night for the Marlins. But what do you think of Jazz being down there? And is it time already, 5 games into the season? Because let's preface, it wasn't a crazy offensive night. It was an improvement of what we've
Right.
seen so far in the first 4 games of the season. They didn't go crazy. 6 hits, 4 runs, but it was a nice night. But is it time to move Jazz back up to the top, or move Jazz up to the top of the order?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see Jazz perform, get that move up in the order. Honestly, my whole thing with Soler isn't even I know Joe's not a fan of his base running, for example. It's less about that with me and more about the K rate and just a guy that can't really get on base. I know that they mentioned Soler's got a decent on base percentage in his career, but you know I want a guy that's going to put the bat on the ball. So I've really been advocating for if not Jazz, a guy like Wendell at the top of the order. Um, but I want to get Jazz as many at bats as possible, whether that's putting him number one or two, just somewhere within that top five. Ideally, is where I'd like to see Jazz.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous when he might be your top offensive player, top 3 offensive player, and we're having him in a batting position where he might get 130 less at bats than he would if he
Yeah,
was on the top of the order.
yeah. I mean, and he's arguably at his peak. He's the best offensive player that you have. You know, probably on the team, right? Like Jazz playing at his best is better than probably anyone else that they have in their lineup. You look
Yeah,
at what he did last year to start the season, he was absolutely electric.
yeah, and it would be a shame from the Marlins to give him 130 less at bats and not get that production at the top of the lineup, because this is an offensive starved team so far to start the season. And Jazz has honestly been the only. I mean, again, only 5 games in. There's only been really 2 to 3 offensive consistently good players so far offensively for the Marlins, in um, Wendell and sorry, moves me off a little bit.
No, it's all good. That's so
Offensive
much better.
players, yeah, and Wendell, Jazz, and Jesus Sanchez have been the only three consistently good offensive players so far this season. So it's nice to have those guys at the top of the lineup. But tonight, Jazz was hitting ninth, and Wendell was hitting sixth.
Yeah, I like, and again, it's all about getting guys at bats with players on base. You know, as far as Jazz and Wendell are guys that are going to get on, and they're going to set up a guy like Jesus Sanchez, who's been really, really good this year. I know that the numbers don't quite jump off the page, but I think you're looking at, I think he had like a 220 BABIP coming into this game.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a guy that's been supremely unlucky, but his numbers don't even look bad.
Yeah,
So, anytime that you can get somebody on for Jesus Sanchez this year, I think that's going to be a huge plus. Really, really, that's what it comes down to for me. Um, you know, I want to see guys get as many opportunities with runners in scoring position, especially guys like Wendell and Jazz, who it is a plus that they can move, definitely.
yeah, and we really need to talk about the pitching tonight. Aptaro,
Yep.
solid night. The bullpen was really good tonight. Like this is
Yep.
a great sign, and I want you to talk about the success you saw tonight from the bullpen, especially good for Bender to come in tonight and shut the door down there.
Yeah, Bender. I mean, listen, I thought Bender pitched really, really well tonight. He got a couple of excuse me singles on balls that were really kind of hit off the hands down that first baseline. That's fine by me. Like if you're gonna get a hit off of something like that, then it is what it is. Is that at that point that's just bad luck from Bender's perspective. But I thought the stuff was nasty as always. 99 with movement. And really, I would almost like him to see him rely on that changeup a little bit less because that feels like what's been hit more early on this year. And because if you've got a pitch, Mariano Rivera did it. He went with a cutter that was just absolutely nasty. Bender's got a fastball with really good arm side run, in the high 90s, and I would just like to see him lean into that even more.
So, are you stating on this podcast, this post game show, that Anthony Bender's ceiling is Mariano Rivera? Is that where we're going with this right now?
No. What I guess what I'm getting, but he's got better stuff. I'll say that.
But it's nothing Mariano Rivera.
No, but he's got better stuff.
Okay, and let's talk about Apataro because it was his first start was a little shaky. Wasn't what we typically saw from Sandy, and then the first inning tonight, also there was a lot of hard hit balls registered in the first half of the Phillies, and they got to him early. But after that, he pretty much settled down and got 5 strikeouts, and I think overall it was a pretty solid night for him.
Yeah, it felt a lot like early season Sandy last year, where he kind of pitched around a lot, but he still ended up with a quality start. Goes 6 1/3, only allows 1 run despite 7 hits. Uh, you know, Sandy's going to give you what Sandy's going to give you. He went 95 pitches deep this game, which for a second start of the season feels like a really good sign for him. But I mean, that's the thing with him. He's a horse. He's gonna go. I thought Mattingly pulled him a little early. I was surprised to see him get pulled at that point in the game. Ultimately, I don't. It turned out to be just fine.
Mhm.
I thought he could have kept going. He probably could have, but I think it's probably the right move overall in the grand scheme of things to kind of you know not have your guy go 110 deep in the second start of the season.
Yeah, especially this early season. I mean, we saw it last night with Kershaw. I mean, these
Yep.
managers are being really overprotective right now, and I know people will get pissed at it and whatever, but I think it's the right move. You we get again. These guys didn't have a normal spring training this year. They what went to spring training in mid March.
Yep.
So I mean, we have to remember that when we talked about the Kershaw situation yesterday. We talked about Sandy tonight. But I agree. I think it was an encouraging start for Sandy, and it was an encouraging win for the Marlins in general.
Yeah, I think that's really the biggest thing. You know, I've been harping on this. If the offense can be even average, I think the Marlins have a chance to win a decent amount of games this year. And this game felt a lot like case in point of that. The
Mhm.
Marlins aren't going to give you 12 hits every single game. That's just not going to happen. But if they can squeeze out, 4 to 5 runs a game somehow, uh, with the pitching staff that they have, it should be enough to win on a
Yeah,
lot of nights.
yeah. And I was actually having this discussion with someone off air, obviously, that the Marlins, relied on 2 seasons ago when they made the playoffs, those one-run fluky victories where the pitching was amazing, and that's where they lacked last year was they kept on losing those one-run games, and the pitching is good enough to where the offense is just average. They need to be average to slightly above average and get those 4 to 5 runs a night. They'll be decent as long as the pitching stays what we expect it to be.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing, and it's why I think the bullpen is so important, especially early on in the season because you're not going to have guys going 7, 8 innings deep into games. So if you can get a performances like you're getting out of a Cole Sulser or Bender thus far in the season, despite his one blown save, um, Stephen Okert outside of tonight has been really good to start the year. If you can get those performances out of the bullpen that you're kind of hoping for, then it makes you a lot better in those close games. It makes you better on the margins for sure.
Okay, and just going into what I want to talk about now is 2-4 after tonight.
Yep.
Last series, honestly, the West Coast trip to start season, that's tough. You played the Giants, who were really good last year. You played the Angels, who can be tough, and very unencouraging start to the season. Where do you feel the Marlins? We're almost 7 games into the season, almost a week into the season. A week into the season. Tomorrow, I think. How do you feel on them compared to where you felt preseason to now, one weekend?
I think if I'm trying to keep everything into perspective, I have my concerns with some of the guys in the lineup right now.
Mhm.
Admittedly, a little bit more than I thought I would going into the season. That said, I think they're about where I expected them to be, all things considered, because you look at the schedule and it is brutal.
Yeah,
You start off with a set in San Francisco, and then you go on the road to Anaheim, and then you get the Phillies, who are vastly improved from where they were last season. So I think trying to keep everything into perspective, if you can hold your head above water after this series, and let's say split the remainder year 3 and 5, all things considered, with the strength of that schedule, it's not the worst thing in the world.
yeah, I agree. My main concerns right now are some of the offensive production that they've
Yeah,
gotten, like Soler just, and it's the off-season accusations too that are lacking this production, and it's a little bit concerning. Although we're not going to do full-on small sample size theater, but Soler has been horrendous. Garcia has not really been that great. Stallings does not have a hit since opening day, which I mean he obviously wasn't brought here to hit, but still concerning when you don't
right.
have a great offensive lineup in the first place. So Rojas has been really bad. So like that's where my concern is right now. Is we talk that this team needs 4 to 5 runs to consistently win. You'll sneak those 1-2-1, 1-0 games, but those are in baseball. That's a point flip, and we saw that the past
Right.
2 years. Works one year, it works against you the next year. Where my concern is right now this offense isn't producing enough to win like games like this consistently.
Right. No, and I think it's a valid concern. I did a little bit of digging and it because I wanted to kind of look into it and see if this is a trend with some of these guys where they start slow or if this is something that's happening just this year. Um, I did look it up. Obviously, Garcia last year through March and April, I think he hit 195 in his first 23 games of the season before picking it up. Uh, hopefully it doesn't take him quite that long this year, but there is a precedent for something like this for him. And Jorge Soler, obviously, last year before the deadline, before getting picked up by Atlanta, he was really, really struggling in Kansas City. So there is a little bit of a precedent for something like this. I'm a little bit more concerned for a guy like Aguilar, just because a guy with his physical profile, you do worry about a steep decline. That's where my primary concern is. I'm less concerned overall about Soler and Aguilar and Garcia, but there are some red flags there certainly.
And this is not a division where you can start slowing because there's 3 really good teams in this division, and the Marlins want to keep afloat. You can't start slow.
Yeah. Again, I will just to bring everything back into the positives. So far so good overall. I mean, there was the one really badly played ball in San Francisco, but outside of that, I think it's been so far so good. With Jesus Sanchez in the field and center, which was originally a pretty big concern of mine. I think he's played fairly well out there. I think honestly, this is a lineup that's going to be anchored by Jazz and Jesus Sanchez, and I think that's something that we all saw coming within the next 2 to 3 years. But I think that's something that we might start to see as soon as this year, really.
And then hopefully just build that supporting cast around them because you need those guys like an Aguilar, Cooper to protect those guys.
Exactly.
And actually play their part.
Yeah. No, I think with Cooper, like Cooper is the one guy I think of the non-young guys that I'm least concerned with. Obviously he had the home run tonight, but Cooper's just a professional hitter. He's not going to swing at junk. And when he does hit the ball, he usually hits the ball really, really hard. So it's always been him staying healthy, which concerns me with him playing in the field. I would think, a guy with his track record of durability, I wouldn't necessarily have playing first so much, even though first isn't like the most physically strenuous position. I just get nervous every time I see Cooper out on a field trying to do things.
I mean, we have everyone's hard dropping. Got hit by the pitch last night, and you scrolled through Twitter, and you were like, out 6 weeks, out 7 weeks, like he's gone. It's like what, he missed a half a game.
Yeah,
we're just Garrett. He just has us on edge.
Yeah, exactly. But it's because everybody knows how good he can be when he's healthy.
Yeah, and that's something that we really needed the past couple of years is healthy, consistent Garrett Cooper. But before we wrap this up, let's look ahead till tomorrow. Looking forward to Pablo's second start.
Yeah.
Continue this. If the Marlins can pull off another one, like you said, win this series, and you start to feel a little bit more confident about this team going forward.
Yeah, I think that the Marlins are in a really good spot winning this start. Because now you've got Pablo, you've got Trevor coming up in 2-3. And that's the one thing about the Marlins rotation that a lot of teams aren't going to have is ace versus ace. Especially with the Marlins offense, it's frustrating for Sandy, I'm sure, but it's true. Like when Sandy's facing off against other aces, he's just not going to get the type of run support that is necessary in a lot of games. But the Marlins rotation is a little bit deeper than most other teams. So by the time you get to that second, third game in a series, if you're starting off 1, 2, 3, they're going to have the advantage, at least on paper, with the pitching matchups. And I think that's that's something that they need to take advantage of in this series and get 2 out of 3, and maybe even if Pablo does win,
Oh, sweet.
I might be.
Calling it sweet.
I think so. Yeah. Let's call it. Let's call it. Strike out the brooms.
We're high off an opening home opener when the LED light show has got Eric
Yep.
acting up. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. You can watch us live at Men on Second on Twitter, at the Five Reasons Sports YouTube page. We'll be doing these a couple times a week, me and Eric, after a post-game show. So join us, live chat with us throughout the game. We hope to see you guys the next time we do this.
All right. See you then.